my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Ashley and I'm the owner of Rainstorm Joy, and today I have a tutorial for you. This is my first tutorial. Hopefully I do it well enough for you to be able to actually follow it. But as you can see, if you've been here before, the office is decorated, and you will know this by the time that this video comes out because I am currently uploading an office decorating video right now. And then I also have a market vlog to upload, and I have this one to upload, but we'll see when this one comes out. It might be before the market vlog, I'm not really sure, because a few videos back, guys, I know that I said I wanted to do Craftmas. I said Vlogmas, but we're going to call it Craftmas. I know that I said I wanted to do Craftmas, and I wanted to do it starting November 1st, but I couldn't because I had a market on November 1st, and I did not have enough time to make a video, edit a video, and post a video before that Saturday. And then I've just been busy, so I don't really know how many tutorials I will actually be able to make for you all before December, but I'm going to try my hardest. So today we are going to be making a bow cozy. I don't remember if anybody asked for this tutorial, because I did ask in one of my videos, what do you want me to show you how to make? But don't worry, I will get to those. But the reason why we're making a bow cozy is because I was making some bow cozies for my market, and while I was making them I was like, wait a second, I could be filming this right now, but I couldn't film it because I just wanted to get it done for the market. So I was like, let me just set some fabric aside and we'll make a video out of it. So that's what we're doing in this video. So I already have my fabric cut, but of course I will let you know what to do. But mine is already cut, so that's not going to be in the video, you know, me cutting it. So let's just go ahead and try to do this. I don't know how this is going to work out, but hopefully it goes well. So this is what you want to do, and when I say this is what you want to do, I absolutely mean it. So to make a bow cozy, most people like to put their cozies in the microwave. Bow cozy, bow koozie, whatever you want to call it, bow cover. The name of it does not actually matter, but you will need absolutely 100% cotton fabric, thread, and batting. Everything needs to be 100% cotton, not 99%, not 80, nothing below 100. You understand? 100%. So I have my 100% fabric and my 100% cotton batting on the back of my fabric. Like I said, I already have mine cut out, so I'm just going to tell you what's the size of it, okay? You're going to take whatever 100% fabric that you like, and you're going to cut it to a 10 by 10 square. As you can see, this is a 10 by 10. These can be smaller, probably wouldn't recommend smaller if you want it to fit a bowl, but they can be smaller or bigger. My standard size is a 10 by 10. So if you want to follow this tutorial exactly the same, 10 by 10, but of course you could do a 12 by 12, 14 by 14, whatever, to fit the bowl that you want it to fit. This size fits a standard like small bowl, so 10 by 10. For this project, you can use the same fabric for the front and back, or you can do what I did for this one and use two different fabrics, but make sure they are both 100% cotton. After you cut out your 100% cotton fabric to your 10 by 10 size, you want to also cut out some 100% cotton batting. The batting that I like to use personally, because it already says it is microwave safe, is Wrap and Zap. I got this Wrap and Zap from Hobby Lobby, but I'm sure you could find it at other craft stores and probably on Amazon and stuff like that as well. But I did get mine from Hobby Lobby. I'm pretty sure it might be cheaper at Walmart, honestly. I think I might have figured that out. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure. But as you can see, this says Wrap and Zap, and it also says 100% natural cotton batting. Now listen to me carefully, okay? This says 100% natural cotton batting. There is some other cotton batting at Hobby Lobby that looks like it's cotton batting, but it is mixed with something else. So you need to make sure that it's 100% cotton and nothing else. So get yourself some Wrap and Zap to save yourself the struggle, because it is absolutely 100% cotton batting, and it is microwave safe, which it says right there on the back. So you want to cut that to a 10 by 10 square as well. So we have the fabric that I like. It is 100% cotton, and I'm probably going to keep saying that, guys, because I need you to know it's 100% cotton, and it is measuring a 10 by 10. I also have my 100% cotton batting, which is Wrap and Zap, and I measured it 10 by 10. And what you want to do is you want to take the wrong side of your fabric, which means the side that does not have the pattern. If you have fabric that is the same on both sides, then you don't necessarily have a right and a wrong side, okay? But the right side is the one that has the pattern, and the wrong side is the one that has nothing on it and it's blank, okay? So you want to take the wrong side of your fabric and put it on your 100% wrap and zap cotton batting. So lay it on there where it's all nice and lined up. Then you can take some pins or some of these where you can just clip it on, or you can get pins and pin it in there. I just prefer these. I do have these in my Amazon storefront if you're interested, but these are also at Hobby Lobby and other craft stores, so you can pin them. I just like to pin all 4 sides. It doesn't really need that many pins because all we're going to do is we're going to quilt an X. So you don't really need to pin too much, but you can use however many pins that you want. Whatever makes you feel comfortable that the fabric is not going to move on you. But I like to put the pins on all 4 sides like that. And then we're going to take both of our fabrics. For this you will need a front and back for the bow cozy. So we're going to take both of them to the sewing machine to make an X for the quilting. And if you don't think you can go corner to corner without making it all wonky, then you can like trace an X on it with a heat removable fabric marker or a disappearing ink fabric marker, which is air and water or just water. But like I said, I'm just going to take it to the sewing machine and just go corner to corner to make an X because it's pretty simple to make an X. Once again, for this project you will need 100% cotton for everything, so make sure that you have 100% cotton thread for your up here and your bobbin. All of it has to be 100% cotton, because if you put it in the microwave you don't want it to melt or mess up or anything, and cotton does not do that when you heat it up. So 100% cotton, okay? Now we're going to take your fabric pieces and we're going to sew corner to corner on both corners to make an X. I don't think the stitch length really matters, but just in case you're curious, I'm using a 3-stitch length. That's what I use for everything anytime I'm sewing, but sometimes when I want to make the quilting go by a little bit faster, I do change my stitch length to a 4 because that makes the stitches a little bit longer, and then you know what I'm talking about, they're just longer. So that doesn't really necessarily matter, but if you want to know, I'm using a stitch length of 3. You want to make sure that you back stitch on the beginning and the end just to make sure it holds in place. So we're done quilting it with the X. Next thing that you want to do is take off your pins because you don't need them anymore. Once again, that was just to make sure your fabric didn't move that much. And then you want to take off any excess of the batting, if you can see it, like right here. This one has a little bit of batting hanging out right there. You can just go ahead and cut that off with scissors or a rotary blade. That's what I like to do. And you want to do that just to help reduce bulk because these can get a little bit thick, okay? And sometimes it's hard to sew things that are thick. If you know, you know. So you just want to get rid of any excess batting that's just kind of hanging out. After that, the next step is to take your fabric, and it doesn't really matter which way it goes because we're going to do it on both sides. But if you just want to make it easier and just follow exactly what I'm doing, I'm going to do it with the direction of the fabric going up first. But again, it doesn't really matter. But you're going to take your fabric and you're going to fold it in half. And just give it a good press just to make sure it's laying down on top of each other. And then what I like to do is I like to take my fabric and line it up to the edge of my cutting mat. And to make this easier, you can use whatever you want to be able to cut this. I used to use like a really long ruler, but I found it that it's actually easier to use one of these smaller ones. I got this from Hobby Lobby. Once again, it should be at any craft store and Walmart, you know. But I just got this because it makes it way easier than using one of those really long ones. So you're going to take whatever it is that helps you cut stuff. You're going to place this 1 square over and 2 squares down, if that makes any sense, okay? You only want 1 square at the top and 2 squares on the side. So I'm going to place this where it goes. Do you see what I'm saying? There's an inch right there and there's 2 inches right here. So you want an inch at the top and 2 inches on the side. And we're going to cut this piece off. So once again, just 1 inch right here and 2 inches down. So 1 inch over from the top and 2 inches down. So once you have this lined up where it's 1 inch from the top and 2 inches down, and you have it nice and lined up diagonally corner to corner from the 1 inch and the 2 inches, you're going to cut that off, and you don't need that anymore. And then you can either just go ahead and go down here and do the same 1 inch from the bottom and 2 inches on the side, and go ahead and place it right there and cut it. Or you can take this and flip it over if you want to do it right here again, whatever's easier for you. So take it 1 inch from the bottom and 2 inches on the side. After that, you can open it up, and sometimes your fabric doesn't really fold as well as it should, or at least mine does sometimes. You see, this side, it did pretty well. It's exactly cut out the way it needs to be. Right here, we have some extra right there. So what I like to do if this happens is I just turn it over so I can see where I need to cut, because the batting cut the way that it needed to, but the fabric was like folded in on itself. So what I like to do is I take my fabric scissors and I just cut off the excess fabric from that spot, and then you're done with that. And then that's gone. Now we're going to do the exact same thing to the other side. So it was just folded this way, but what you want to do now is fold these sides together and make sure you line those up well. Once again, move this to the lines of your cutting mat, and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to do 1 inch at the top and 2 inches on the side for the top and the bottom. After you're done with that, what you can do is you can check to see if you got all the fabric, and I did that time, you see. And right now, it's good to go for the next step. Of course, we're going to do the exact same thing to the other piece of fabric, the exact same thing, okay? But after that, we're ready for the next step, except if you want to do something a little bit more to your bow cozy. For me personally, I like to have my bow cozies with rounded edges. Some people do leave them pointy. So if you want yours to be pointy, then you're done with that, okay? We're done with this step. But if you want round edges, go ahead and leave it folded like this. And you can either draw a curve right there if you want, but personally, I am just gonna go ahead and just cut off a little bit to make it round at the top, because once again, I like mine rounded and not pointy. But you could just like come right here and go corner to corner in that inch, so you can have them all the same, but I'm just gonna go ahead and just cut it off. And like I said, we're gonna do this exact same thing to both fabric pieces, okay? So just fold it in half, line it up, and go 1 inch from the top and 2 inches on the side for the top and the bottom. Then open it, fold it the other way, 1 inch at the top, 2 inches on the side, and cut that off. And round your corners if you want to, or leave them pointy if you want to. Now we have both pieces of the fabric, both panels, ready, and they're cut exactly the same. If you want to make these in bulk, some people do make a template, so your template will come out looking like this, and then what you can do is just lay it on the fabric and then cut it out. But if you're not going to make a lot of these, then you can just cut it the way that we just cut it. But if you want to, you can just go ahead and make a template like this, and then it'll be ready for the next step, all ready. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take these corners that we cut out right here. These are called darts. This is what is going to help give the bow cozy its shape. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these and we're going to just put them together, okay? Literally just put them together. And then you're going to pin them. You can use the pins that go in the fabric, or you can just clip them. So just take them and then put them together. Make sure it's nice and lined up at the top and on the sides. They should fold together pretty easily and go together just by itself, just because of the way that you cut it. And just go ahead and clip all of those together. Once you have all of these sides clipped together, it should come out looking like this, which is going to give it that bowl shape. And you're going to do that to both of your panels, okay? Exactly the same. So take your other panel, just fold it where this goes together, and clip it. After you have them all nice and clipped together for both of your panels, you're going to take it to the sewing machine and you're going to sew right along the line right there. That's the point of clipping these together, is so that we could sew right along the line. You can use 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch, or you know, all those things. I personally just line it up with my foot, you know, my presser foot on the sewing machine. I just line it up with that and I sew. So I put the edge of my foot to the edge of the fabric and I sew. I don't know how many feet or inches, it's not feet. I don't know how many inches that is, but that's what I like to do, to literally with almost everything that I sew. I do that, almost everything. I do use my presser foot to do a few other things, but I never really do like 1/8 of an inch or whatever, because like when you say that, what does that mean? So I just take my foot and I line it up to the edge of the fabric and I sew them. So you're gonna do that on all of your sides for both panels of fabric, and you're gonna make sure that you back stitch and lock that in at the beginning and the end. You always want to back stitch when you want something to actually hold in place. So back stitch at the beginning and back stitch at the end. And for these, your stitch length actually does matter. For the shorter stitch lengths, that makes it even stronger to hold what you just did together. So longer stitch lengths are more for decorating, so that's why I was like, it doesn't really matter. When we made that X and we were just quilting how long your stitch length was, but when you're actually trying to lock something together and keep it sewn together, you want a smaller stitch length, okay? Okay, so we're already almost done with these bow cozies. The next thing that we want to do is we're going to have one of them just as it is, just leave it as it is, and take the other one and turn it right side out. So just flip it like that, poke out your edges, and then it's ready for the next step. The reason for doing this is because you always want to have right sides together when you're trying to turn a project right side out, okay? What that means is, once again, we have a right side and a wrong side to our fabrics. Whichever you want to show when the project is done is the right side. And if you don't want to see the other side, that's the wrong side, okay? So we want one of them to just leave it the same and have the fabric going like this, outwards. And then turn up one of them the right way, flip it, like push it out. And then this way we can put right sides together and go sew it, okay? So this is where it gets a little tricky. It's not too hard, but it is sometimes difficult to line it up the way that you want to line it up. But what you're going to do is you're going to take your bows and you're basically just going to sit them in together with the right sides and parts touching each other. But you want to line it up as nicely as you can, because we're going to go sew around the edge. These are reversible, so it does not really matter which fabric is right here and which fabric is going to sit inside, because they're reversible. Once we're done, you can flip it right, you just can flip it both ways. So it doesn't really matter which fabric is what. And even if you use the same fabric, it is still reversible, but it's the same, so there's no point to reverse it. But when it's like this, it is reversible with different fabrics. So make sure that you have all your edges poked out like I said, and then we're just going to sit that like this. To make this a little bit easier, I like to start like where we made one of those darts. So I take this dart spot, I put it with my other panel's dart spot, and you just want to make sure that they're nice and lined up like this, and then you want to pin it. And you want to do that all the way around, except you want to leave a spot open where you're not going to sew, so you can flip it right side out. Where I like to leave a spot open is like at the side of my dart. So once you get your fabric lined up, I like to go like this to push it down to get the extra fabric out of the way. But once you have your fabric lined up, you're going to put another pin like right there at the top of your curve or your point, whichever one you decided to do. And then I'm just going to leave this spot open so I can turn it right side out. But to help myself know that this is where I don't want to sew, I'm going to take two of these and put them right here to know that I don't want to sew right there. And then you're just going to go all the way around to do the same thing. So I'm going to go to the next dart and I'm going to line up my fabric, putting the darts to the dart so I can hopefully line it up well enough when I flip it right side out. And I'm going to pin it or clip it right there. And then I'm going to put another clip at the top of this curve. And I'm going to do that all the way around. You can use as many pins or clips as you want. Whatever is going to help you keep the fabric together and not move on you. Now it's ready to go get sewn. Once again, you're going to leave a spot that you're not going to sew. Do not sew right there, so you can flip it right side out. So you can start right here at your dart and go all the way around, or you can start at your curve and go all the way around. I do recommend when you leave this spot open to turn this right side out, you do want to sew a little bit on the curve, because curves are harder to flip together to sew on top of. So you want to sew like a little bit of the curve, but you also want to make sure you leave a big enough spot to be able to push it out more, like, easier. I'm going to start sewing right here, so I'm going to remove that clip and I'm going to put it a little bit on the curve. And like I said, I still like to use the presser foot edge to go around, because you want to make sure you leave enough seam allowance for when you turn it right side out, it's not going to not be sewn together. So again, I just like to line it up with my presser foot, the edge of it. So I'm going to put it right there, and I'm going to back stitch when I begin and when I end. Always, always, always when you want to keep the stitch in place. If you don't work with curves very well, you can just lower your needle into your fabric, lift up your presser foot, and turn it if you don't feel comfortable with just turning it as you're sewing. So I made it all the way around and I'm back where I started. This is the spot that I started. Here's where I don't want to sew. So I'm going to take this clip off and I'm just going to sew right here onto the dart. So that's already closed, so it's not hard to fold that into itself when we do the top stitch in a second. So I'm just going to sew a little over this dart and then leave this spot open. If you want to, once you have it all sewn together, you can just look to make sure that you got both of the fabrics on both sides and it doesn't just look like you sewn the fabrics together, because I've done that before where I thought I was sewing them together and I actually wasn't, so I had to go back and do it again. So I like to just make sure I actually have the fabrics together on both sides, and it looks like this. Okay, so it happened just now. It looks like this side of the fabric on the bottom like shifted, or I didn't line it up well enough. So it actually just sewed just one piece of fabric, not both of them together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my sewing machine and I'm going to use the bottom of this instead of the top fabric to be able to know where to sew, so they're actually sewn together. See, if you can see right here, I was sewing and somehow I just managed to go off and the fabric is actually down here and not lined up. So I'm going to go sew around here so that they're together. Here is the new stitch. If you can tell, it did go like this and didn't sew them together, but here's the new one, so they're actually sewn together now. The next part is to flip it right side out, but before you do that, to make it easier for when we sew the top stitch on this, just to close it off, what you want to do is, or what you can do is, you don't necessarily have to, I do recommend it though. You take your fabric scissors and you're going to cut not all the way to the stitch line, okay? Do not go all the way to the stitch line, or you're just going to have to take it back to the sewing machine and sew it all over again. So get close to the stitch line that you made, but not all the way to it, and just cut some slivers where it curves. And you can also do that where the darts are. It gets kind of thick in the dart area, I have experienced. And if you don't want your sewing machine to go all kinds of cray-cray, if it does that sometimes, just give it some help by making some slivers where the darts are, like this. Once again, not cutting all the way to where you stitched, or you're gonna have to go back and do that, but just go ahead and do that at the curves. This helps it to be able to fold down once we flip it right side out. After you're done putting the slivers in the curves and in the dart area, you can take a pointy tool thing to help poke out your edges. What I like to use is a chopstick with a rounder edge, because some chopsticks are pointy. You don't want to do that because you don't want to poke out your seams. So I use a chopstick with a rounder edge, but you can use whatever works for you. A lot of sewists and seamstress recommend you don't use scissors. I have done that before, but don't. So just take it, and I like to start from like the back. It makes it easier, and push that through the hole that you left. If you did not leave a hole, you're gonna go have to seam rip all of that. So hopefully you left a hole and you listened. So push it through your hole, and try not to push too far or too hard where your seams are, because you don't want to rip apart the seams at the beginning and end of that hole. That's why you want to leave a big enough hole so you can actually turn it right side out. And then use your poking stick or whatever you use to poke out all of your corners very gently because you don't want to rip through a seam. So this is what it looks like when it's turned right side out. Once again, this is going to be reversible when we're done, but for now I'm just going to leave it this way. But this is what it looks like. It looks pretty cute. Honestly, this is probably one of the better ones that I've made. I don't even know how that happened. Like, my seams are really nice and together. Look at that. Look at this. You see that? That is lined up nicely. I don't know what happened this time. Oh, this side isn't that nice. But this side is good. This side's good. This side's good. What happened to this side? It's a little off right there. I don't know if you can tell. Anyways, that's why you want to put your darts together so they can line up, but whatever. Next thing that you want to do is we're going to take this spot that we left open and we're going to fold it in to itself. And once you have that nicely enfolded to your liking, you're going to pin it. I like to do about 2 pins, like right here and right here. And you can start on either side and just sew all the way around. Or you can just sew that part closed and you're done. But I like to sew all the way around because it looks nicer to have a top stitch on the entire thing. I will say it does get thick around the corners and the darts sometimes, so slow, a little bit slower around there, because I have done it where I was sewing the same speed as I usually do and then my needle gets, like, it hits something because it moved because it was too thick or something, and it's just this whole problem. So sew a little bit slower around the thicker parts if you want to give yourself some more help. What you can also do to help you sew thicker material, anytime you have a lot of layers together, you can use a walking foot. And I do have a walking foot, I just don't know if mine doesn't work or if I don't know how to use it. So I'm going to use my regular presser foot because my walking foot does not work. The treads do not move my fabric. So, but if you have a walking foot that works, you can use your walking foot, and that will probably make it a lot easier to do a top stitch all the way around. But once again, I'm going to use my regular pressing foot, which is the foot that the sewing machine came with, and it's the foot that's already on your sewing machine, just in case you're new and you don't know what I'm saying at all. So just going to top stitch, which is just a stitch that's on top of your fabric, and sew all the way around. For this, I will sew a little bit closer to the edge of my fabric instead of lining this up to my presser foot, because you want to make sure you actually sew this together. And if you sew too far inwards, this is still going to be open. So you want to sew as close to the edge of your fabric as you can, or as you want. But you don't want to leave a big gap of what you're sewing, because then it's just going to still be open. What I like to do is when I have to fold fabric into itself to close it off, I like to pull it taut so it lines up nicer. So I push the fabric and stuff in there. I get it all nice and lined up. Sometimes you have to fix the batting that you use, especially because we only did 1 stitch to hold the batting, but sometimes you might have to pull up the batting because it might just be in there like that. So just pull it where your fabric is and then fold it in. Just pull where you started and ended, and then grab a clip and clip right there close to where that started, and then go to the other side. And like I said, I started on the curve instead of behind the curve because curves are harder to fold into itself. So if you can see here, it's a little bit more pointy than this round edge. If you want to avoid it being a little bit more pointy, I recommend starting a little bit further down. But once again, I would not go past this dart because that's another, indentation, it's another curve. But you want to leave a big enough space right here to flip it right side out. But take that spot as well, fold it into itself, pull it taut, and clip. And now I'm going to go take this to the sewing machine, and I'm probably going to start like right here and just sew all the way around, and this is still going to be open, but once I get back right here, then I'm going to sew it closed. I think that's just going to be easier for me, but you can start wherever you want to start. Just make sure you actually sew this part closed. So we're in the final stretch. This is probably one of the harder steps of making a bow cozy, simply because it can get a little thick, but other than that, these are really simple to make. By the time you get to this step, I'm sure you understand how simple this is to make. So when we're sewing around this, you just want to make sure that your fabrics are nice and lined up, so you can just like roll it to get it where it's nice and lined up. Otherwise, while you're doing the top stitch, it can like end up like that, which isn't the worst, but you want to try to get it nice and lined up as much as you can. So just pick a spot to start and stop. Always back stitch to lock it in. And this is where I have it lined up for me. If you can see, it's no longer at the edge of my presser foot. It's like right there, because you want just a little bit of this. This is where it's going to sew. So you can actually make sure that it's closed. Because once again, if I had it all the way at the end of my presser foot, it would still be open. If you're going over a spot that's a little tricky and it gets stuck, you can push your fabric a little bit and pull it a little bit, but not like too much, because you don't want to break your needle or mess up your machine. But it kind of helps it feed underneath your presser foot. But once again, if you use a walking foot, it should probably pull itself under there a lot easier than the regular foots. But if it does get stuck, you can just push a little bit or pull a little bit, and it should help. This one last step and then we're done. All you have to do now is just cut off those extra threads from where you sewed it and did the top stitch. You didn't have to really worry about cutting off the threads for the rest of it, because it's tucked inside the fabric and you don't even know. But for now, you do want to cut off the threads because you can actually see them. So just cut off those threads, and if you have any loose threads hanging out, you can also just snip those off. And you can just give it one more go around to make sure it's actually closed and it looks the best that it can look to your liking. And we are done! So we completed a bow cozy. How did it go, guys? I hope I taught you how to make these well enough, and I hope that it worked out for you. I know it can be a little bit tricky watching tutorials, but also sometimes watching them instead of reading them is helpful, so hopefully this one was a good one for you. Once again, if you use 2 different fabrics, this is a reversible bow cozy. So this is what it looks like this way, and this is what it looks like this way. And just to give you a clear idea of what I'm talking about, these are the round edges, and some people just leave them pointy. So which one did you decide to do? Did you cut yours round like mine, or did you leave them pointy? Let me know if this tutorial was helpful for you, and if it wasn't, I'm sorry. I'll try better next time. I hope you all enjoy your bow cozies and you go make a lot of them for yourself or for others this Christmas season. Make sure you drop down in the comments what else you would like for me to teach you how to make. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye! This is pretty cute.